Welcome everyone to the Winter Forest Artist Challenge, where there are several of us that are collaborating to challenge one another into creating something theme related. So tonight we're going to create a winter rabbit sitting underneath a pine tree. Here are some supplies that I'll be using: the different paints and gesso, a canvas board, and some frog tape. I like to use the frog tape to edge my canvas board and not give me a nice crisp edge around my project. So I just tear off a strip of the frog tape and I will place it about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch along each edge of my board. Once I get it placed as straight as I can, I kind of give it a swipe to make sure it's down nice and neat, and I will trim the edges. And for the back side of the tape, I just fold it over so that it meets the edge of the canvas board. It also helps with removing the frog tape after the project is finished. I like to use some gesso on my canvas boards. I buy them in bulk from Amazon. You can pick them up at Dollar Tree or Walmart. They're very inexpensive and they're my favorite surface to paint on because they're easy to frame. They don't take up a lot of room to store. And once I get the frog tape on each side, I like to take the gesso and put a layer of the gesso along the edge of the tape that gives it an extra seal so that anything that I lay down in acrylic paint is not going to seep under that, and it'll help me keep a nice crisp edge for my project. Also, I feel like these canvas boards are a little dry, and it just helps to prep the canvas to take the acrylic paint when we begin to lay in the multiple layers to create our project. I'm just kind of going over my strokes here, trying to get everything to smooth out and have as few ridges and stroke marks as possible. And as it dries, it gets a little easier to kind of work out those ridges. At first, I thought I was going to create this in a landscape position, and then decided I wanted to do something in a portrait position. And I'm going to use one of my favorite tools, which is a friction pen by Pilot. It is a disappearing ink pen that disappears once heat is applied to it. And I'm just trying to find the center of my board. I'm not being very meticulous about where the center is. I'm just trying to get a general idea of the center of my board. And I kind of just loosely grid it off, and then I'll begin to sketch my rabbit just to have a general idea of where I want everything to be placed. Once I get a good idea of placement and make any adjustments, then I'll begin to lay in the background. Now that I have my sketch laid in, I begin by laying in the background, and I'm going for just some vague indications of trees and snow and tree trunk, and then I kind of re-sketch with paint my rabbit and then fill it all in with a good color blocker like white chalk paint or the Master's Touch white titanium. And you can see I'm now laying in the ears and some of the depth and the highlights, bringing that eye in at this time and doing some detail work on that eye. And then we'll put a little spark in the eye to give our rabbit some life. Putting in the line work for the nose and the mouth and some of the features in the head. kind of outlining the jaw and the forehead with a dark paint so as to add that into the depth, but help me to kind of know where those boundaries are. And then I just start taking my various paints and layering them, just adding some good background surface paint, indications of the depth and the highlights, just kind of blending everything together. And just really mixing those colors of the browns, the black, the gray, the white, using some caramel, bringing in some shadow work. And once we kind of get all of these colors layered in, and I feel pretty good about the highlights and the shadows, we're going to start laying in some detail of the fur. And now we're just using a very fine round brush and just laying in various colors of the fur, just giving it that texture effect and enhancing some of the depth of the shadows in the jaw and the forehead. And it's interesting how the white kind of outlining the nose and the mouth area just really enhances the look of our winter rabbit. Really, the secret to all this is layer, layer, layer. It's all about putting in those depths and the highlights, using some of the fine slash marks, I call them, or hash marks, to lay in that texture. And we're doing the same now with the ears, just really focusing on the depth and the highlights that just make all the difference in the world, really giving the inner ear that flesh. I am bringing a little bit of red that's been softened with some titanium white and some terracotta to kind of help enhance that thinner flesh area inside that ear. I'll just mention here that the background is not completely done, and you'll see later in the video that I actually enhance some of the tree and the snow. As a side note, you'll often hear the pitter-patter of my little puppy dog. He's always right here with me, and so if you hear any pitter-patter going on, that would be Baxter. So the ear that's behind has darker tones because we see more of the outside of that ear that's in the background. And it truly is all about the layers. And it's fascinating that the more you layer, the more realistic everything becomes. And one of the things that I struggle with when I paint is really getting my brain to slow down. sometimes especially when I'm tired, I find myself wanting to rush through a project, and I really have to take a deep breath and just focus on those details. Each little stroke makes a huge impact. I'll use different methods. I'll use the chisel on my flat brush, and then I'll come back and use a fine tip round brush and just keep working it until I'm satisfied with the look. Here I wasn't real happy with that silhouette on that side of my rabbit, so I kind of used some of the burnt umber that I have in the tree trunk area and just kind of shaved off part of that edge just to give me a more satisfying roundness to that side of him. I'll just continue to work on the highlights that are on that side. Just laying in with the chisel of my flat brush some of the texture and the fur effects, enhancing some of the shadow under his head. Kind of bringing out some of the darker little spots that I see to give the front area of him, his chest area, more depth. When you start studying wildlife and different elements of wildlife, you notice that nothing is ever solid. There's a lot of different shades, a lot of different colors that could be in just a small area. And whenever you try to focus on that and bring that to the surface, to your paint surface, it's just amazing the difference it will make. And sometimes I have to kind of move away from one section and work on a different area and come back. Just using a very, very fine round brush right here just to add in the little whiskers. And then I'm going to kind of work on that background some more and shave down some of those white sections that represent snow. My focus was primarily on the rabbit and less on the background. And take away the frog tape, and here's our final picture. Let me know in the comments what you think.